Okay, this evening I will be flying some FPV with a Skywalker over the beach. I'll be taking off from Florence, Oregon in some beautiful calm evening air to explore the rocky jetties to our south. Takeoff and landing will be performed line of sight, as there are still many people out and about enjoying the sunset. Heading north now for a moment while I put my FPV goggles on. And the screen you see at the top now is what I am actually witnessing through my Fat Shark goggles. That is the Mobius camera looking straight down. Now I'm panning around to verify that all my nav lighting is turned on. You can see my video signal breaking up, and that's because I'm flying behind my directional antenna. So I am activating return to launch real quick to bring her around on autopilot to get her pointed in the right direction. Okay, video's good. Back to RC mode, and now I'm manually steering her back on course. You can see the video signal still breaking up a little bit as we maneuver back into our cone of reception. I'm going to try something a little different this flight and move that live video view out of the way into the corners so you can enjoy the best views of the Pacific Ocean and the Oregon coastline. As you can see, my ground speed is 55 kilometers an hour. Now, without adjusting the throttle setting at all, I'm going to perform a nice level turn here to check wind direction. Now watch the ground speed as I turn. See how it drops down lower and lower as I turn? It reaches its lowest point of 39 kilometers an hour just as we pass through 0 degrees or due north. So 55 minus 39 is 16, and divide that by 2 and that gives us a wind speed of 8 kilometers an hour from the north. It's always good to check wind direction and speed when you first get airborne. Always be mindful of this so you don't end up too far downwind with too few electrons left in the tank. Right now you can see we're passing over some weird greenish blue formations in the sand that you normally wouldn't see if you're just strolling along the beach. We can see the north and south jetties just ahead there. Now as I pan to the right, you can clearly see my blue starboard LED strip underneath the wing, although it is not visible in the GoPro view. That's because the GoPro is mounted a bit higher than the live camera. Panning around to the left, and the situation is the same to port. And Grumpy Cat is thoroughly annoyed by the flashing strobe above his head, but he's grumpy about everything, so that doesn't concern me much. You can search through my previous videos for strobe and nav lighting installation if you want. I have plenty of videos up on that. Down below there is a nice view of some rolling waves breaking onto the shore as we approach the North Jetty. Now I'm panning over to see if there are any beachcombers out and about. I don't see anybody right away, so let's fly up and down the jetty. We're going to hold a minimum of 30 meters altitude as we fly here. The Skywalker cruises nicely at about 7 or 8 amps. You can see the current draw fluctuating between 6 and 9 by itself. Part of the fluctuation is caused by the capacitor and the strobe electronics, and the rest is simply due to the motor and the ESC doing their thing. It looks like a campfire down below. Somebody is probably roasting hot dogs and marshmallows right now. And turning west now towards the setting sun, we will do a low pass up and down the jetty to see if we spot anybody who might need rescuing. There's a guy right there possibly doing some fishing, or maybe he's lost. Now as I make my way out over the outer tip of the North Jetty, you will see a tall green fixture jutting up like a lamppost. Did you see it there? Now that's some kind of fog warning device, which makes an eerie sound when it is foggy outside. Let's play back some video from several months ago and you'll hear what I'm talking about. Coming up on it. Now listen closely right here. You hear that? It's kind of spooky sounding, isn't it? I'm not sure exactly what it is because I fly planes, not boats, but I think it sounds pretty cool. And it definitely has to do with fog because it only sounds when there's fog out. Altitude is still right at about 30 meters. If I lose signal for any reason, my Skywalker will turn towards me and head back home, climbing up to 50 meters as it makes its way back north. One should never perform flights like this without an autopilot on board. If you want to see what equipment I have on board and on the ground, just check below the video in the description area. I have everything listed there with prices. Motor battery voltage is still up there at 11.7, 11.8 volts. Video and RC control battery is plenty at about 12.4 volts. There's a couple walking out towards the ocean ahead. Let's do a nice tight circling turn here. Every now and then when I'm flying at night or even at dusk with all lighting systems on, I do one of these tight turns. It keeps the bottom of the wings at a high bank angle, showing off the blue and red LEDs to those watching. This is strictly a showy maneuver designed to alert those on the ground that there is definitely something strange flying about above them. It gets their attention, and as I head back home into the distant sky, it gets them wondering what in the world they just witnessed. It's kind of fun.
What is that thing up there, honey?
Oh, it's probably just a military drone. Just keep moving so they don't mistake us for insurgents. Alright, enough fun. Cruising back now, our ground speed crawls down as expected to about 40 kilometers an hour and even less as I turn a little bit to the right here. The main purpose of this flight was mainly to scout the area out a bit before doing some serious flying the following day. My fiance and I are staying at the Driftwood Shores Resort for the weekend. You will see the resort when we get another kilometer or so up the beach. Up ahead I can see some more beachcombers, so I am maneuvering to do some recon. I do have a very loud siren on board that I sometimes use to announce my presence to those below. It is for safety reasons mostly, but it is also fun to see people look up as I approach. Here's an example from another flight of what I mean. Notice that nobody is aware there is an aircraft approaching low from behind. Now they hear the siren and are aware of it and turning around to look. It's kind of like, think of it as like one of those handlebar bells on a bike warning pedestrians you are riding up from behind. It's just the polite thing to do. Tonight, however, the air is so still and quiet that people have no problem hearing just the sound of the motor as I approach. Hi, just passing through. Yeah, they saw me. One thing I would like to point out here about safety. I regularly do flyovers like this with my fixed-wing aircraft, but I would never do the same with a multi-rotor or a helicopter. Now, I have absolutely nothing against multi-rotors, but the problem is, if a single motor or ESC fails, a multi-rotor will somersault straight in, like one of those ninja stars that I used to throw at my sister when I was a kid. Very dangerous and completely uncontrollable. A fixed-wing aircraft with electric power is much safer. If your motor battery dies, no problem, just glide it into a dune. Now, as an RC pilot for 25 years, I have had wings snap in half on me. I have had nitro motors vibrate loose in their mounts and plummet to the ground, and once I even had an elevator servo fail on me. So there are always risks you have to keep in mind, there's no doubt about that. But with a nice, easy, slow-flying Skywalker with an autopilot on board, the options for getting out of a bind are plentiful. Coming up on some more people.
Oh my god, what was that? I think it's that guy over there with the funny goggles. He's kind of cute.
Now, as I approach my home position, you can see me on the ground as I pull my fat sharks off and then swing my directional antenna around just like that. I'm doing this because we are going to head up the beach further north now, and I want to have the best signal possible as I proceed. It's getting darker out, so you can see the reflection of my LED strips in the tidewater pools below me as we continue exploring. It's a neat effect. I have thought about adding an antenna tracker to my setup, but I am reluctant to do so for a couple of reasons. I don't want the added cost, I don't want the added complexity, and the potential for things to go wrong. And besides, usually I fly out in a certain direction anyway, and the signal is just fine as long as I point the antenna in the general direction of my plane. So I just manually swing it around when I need to. If you look closely, you can also see my rear view mirror at work at bottom center of each frame. I added the mirror, which is actually a fishing lure, so I could tell at a glance if my nav lights are on when flying at night. Also, if you look even more carefully, you can see a cluster of yellow shapes in the center of the mirror. That is actually a cluster of yellow LEDs from a cheap little Hobby King light that I have just installed. That little cluster of LEDs are wired in parallel with my siren. So when the siren is sounding, the LEDs also light up. This gives me a visual cue to let me know when my siren is blaring, even when I'm far from home. Since I don't have a live audio feed, there's a chance I could accidentally leave my siren on throughout a flight without even knowing it, and that could get a lot of people annoyed at me very quickly. So those little yellow LEDs alert me to the fact that my siren is still on. Okay, we're coming up on 1 kilometer distance now, and at that point I'm going to banker around and head back towards the resort. I'm flying with a brand new Gens Ace battery. It only has a couple flights on it, and I don't want to push it for the first few 10 flights or so. And I definitely don't want to get down below 11.2 volts for the 3-cell pack. Now that beeping sound you just heard is me switching from my directional helical antenna to my omnidirectional. I am well within range of my skew planar setup, and when I come back in to circle and set up for a landing, I don't want to be bothered with having to point the directional at my plane. Coming in a little closer to the houses and buildings inland here, I'm planning on doing a nice little flyby past the resort. And there it is up ahead in the live view. Let's turn that off now. Let's turn that live view off now and just enjoy the GoPro for a bit. It's definitely getting dark and the video is getting quite muddy in the dim light. There's some dogs, people, and more campfires. Now you may have noticed throughout the flight that there is some interference in my live video. This is most likely due to the fact that I have not yet upgraded my Dragon Link transmitter with the newest board, which would eliminate those bands from my video signal. I should have done this by now, but I've just been lazy. I've been too preoccupied. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Turning onto the downwind leg now. My home position is to the east off the port wingtip. We're going to fly to about 200 meters downwind before turning on to final approach. Distance is approaching 240, almost 250 meters as we turn here. And lining up for a nice descent. Pulling the goggles off now. I'm going to do a line of sight landing just because there's people in the area that I might not know about. There's some nice shots from the Mobius just before touchdown. And there it is. Now if you like what you saw, be sure to subscribe because there are plenty more videos on the way, so stay tuned.